Hello, it's Helen Reed here. I just finished recording the episode on shame and finished doing my little errand, and now I'm walking home. I was like, I need to record another one. So here we are. And this one is a follow on from my post on Facebook and Instagram all about evolving orgasms. And this is like such an important topic. I have been literally blown away by my journey of sexual evolution. I cannot even begin to tell you. Like, when I started this journey of personal development, like properly in 2017, when I left my job as a lawyer, just before just after I handed in my notice, and just before the notice period was up and I was just about to actually leave, I had this kind of really intense flash of awareness that the dream that I had had intermittently, especially when I was younger, of someone, I'm trying to be careful about how I phrase this, because I don't want to, the intention here is not for people to know who I'm talking about, but someone who was around when I was growing up and when I was little, that a dream that I used to have of that person having like sexual relations with me, and me thinking, oh my god, that's so inappropriate of me, like how disgusting am I to be having that dream. Just before I left my legal career in 2017, I had this flash of awareness that of course it wasn't a dream. And I've had like different conversations since then with different people who, everyone has their opinion on these things, don't they? Especially when there isn't like concrete memories, and it's kind of more of a knowing about whether this is, and you know, then I doubt myself, like, oh my god, you know, is this real? Have I made this up? But I'm quite at peace now with the idea that it doesn't really matter who believes me or doesn't believe me. I know in my body what happened, and my body knows what happened, and the point really of even talking about it now is that it was a massive catalyst for this journey of exploration into my sexuality that has just been wild and so incredible. Like, it's literally taken me to my knees and brought me like just the most incredible levels of intimacy and connection with Tom and myself and my body and God. It's just like, it's been incredible on so many levels. But at that point, I never would have, there was this whole world that I had no idea existed. And as I've shared recently in my other episode about shame and in other posts, I have just finished watching the 3rd season of Sex Education, and watching that through my lens now, having gone on this journey and continuing to be on this journey, which is super exciting because I've already experienced so much incredible stuff that I never would have imagined, and I can't even imagine where this journey is going to take me going forward. But like what we are shown in society and like through Netflix, and it's just a tiny little snippet of the potential of our bodies. And as a woman, like this so relates to, and this will have to be an episode for another day as well, but you know, it relates to like how we birth our babies and how we view our sexuality, how we view our menstrual cycles, how we you know, we're not encouraged to spend time with our yonis. We're not encouraged to open to any kind of intimate relationship with our own bodies. We might you know, I know most people have or do masturbate, but generally it just seems like it, and maybe this is just, you know, it's always my perspective, isn't it? But it just seems like it's through such a narrow lens of awareness. And I don't think that we can really get this awareness from other people. I think this is something we can be kind of inspired by other people, and that's the whole purpose why I share all this stuff, because I want people to be inspired to think more widely than, you know, what they see on Netflix and in films. But this is something which I feel more than anything we need to experience for ourselves. We need to like open to a level of intimacy in ourselves, in our bodies, in our being, and with God, with the universe, with life. Like, as I've said, and I will continue to say, for me this is not religious, for you it might be. I don't care whether you even call this spiritual. I don't care whether you have a label for God or source or the universe, or whether it's just life itself or nature, or I don't care what labels are used. I just care that there is something bigger than us and our bodies, that when we kind of sink into that energy and form a relationship with that energy, because it's really about the relationship. Like, we need to form the relationship with the energy of creation. That this is the way I see it, but it might be completely different for you. But it's about forming a relationship with like the essence of life. And people say to me like, oh, you know, when you talk about God, are you talking about like a man with a beard in the sky? No. But if someone is, that's okay. Like that's their relationship. Everyone is going to have their own unique relationship with this energy, with this force. And we're all going to relate to it differently, just like we relate to every single aspect of life and every single human being that we meet differently. And that is the important thing, that we understand that we are developing and nurturing and building a relationship with an essence, with a force, with whatever intangible like label or not label you want to give it. And that's our relationship to have and develop. And through the experience of that relationship in our bodies, we will open to a journey which relates to our sexuality. Because our sexual energy is the energy that creates life. It's pure life force energy. And yes, it relates to our sexual relations and interactions and relationships and the way that we relate to sex. But it also goes like way beyond that, because it's not just about sex, and it never has been. That energy is the creative energy that we are being invited to express in the most unique way through our unique collection of cells. And that realization back in 2017 sent me, like, was a catalyst for this journey. And since then, like, I've had so many things change in my body, in my relationship with Tom, in my experience of sex, in my experience of me as a sexual being. Like, it's so many things have shifted on such an incredibly deep level. And it's like, I just want everyone to experience this. I want every single woman on this planet to have their experience of this journey. It's and so in terms of evolving orgasms, it's gone from, like, when I first met Tom, we met on the first day of university. We went to university in Sheffield, and on the first day he walked into my flat, which was a flat of girls, and he was in the flat below in the university accommodation, and he walked in with like an orange in his mouth, and a tea towel and a frying pan over his head, and just like started doing our washing up and didn't talk. He's a very interesting like magnetic human being, and I was immediately like just so intrigued by him. Anyway, after a couple of months we got together, and the energy between us was, like, from the beginning totally electric. It was just like, whoa, what the hell is going on in my body? And it was just wild. But it was the first time that I had started to have like regular sex. I'd been on my gap year, and then I had moved out of home and gone to university. So it meant like having sex like multiple times a day. And what happened was then I started, and I've written posts about this, and I'll probably go into this in more detail in another podcast, because for anybody who also suffers from or has suffered from any kind of like recurrent cystitis, my journey with that has been so profound. It's brought so much healing in my body and in relation to my sexuality, and it's been like the biggest blessing that I never would have thought that it would have been back then, when in 2004, that was when we went to university, and that was when all this started, like the wild sex and the problems with cystitis. But it was always this like very like it was a surface level desire. It was like a really amazing desire, and we had really amazing sex, but it was always like clitoral stimulation, and there wasn't a depth of desire, and there wasn't a depth of experience. But it was amazing, and at that point I had no idea what else there was, because you don't know, do you, until things evolve and then you experience something different. But now, what has happened over specifically the past 6 to 9 months is really since I held I went from like basically single clitoral orgasms to multiple clitoral orgasms, and then to this, after reading Pussy, A Reclamation, I got the training video for massively expanded orgasms, I think that's what it's called, and watched how the guy that she has worked with and talks about, Mama G, I think it is, in her book, she talks about this course, and so Tom and I worked through that, where he would, we'd get the lubricant, and he would be like stimulating my clitoris for a really long time, and in a very, very, very subtle and gentle, soft way. And that really opened my eyes to the whole less is more concept, like the whole idea that there is no need for, like in the past I've used a vibrator on my clitoris while having sex. Like there is no need for that level of intense stimulation. And it doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with that. It's just that having experienced this less is more, it's like, whoa, there's something really powerful here that goes beyond so much need for physical exertion. And there are loads of other examples that I can give in relation to that, but that was it still felt quite clinical, and it was still very related to the clitoris, which is amazing, by the way. I have no issue with the clitoris. The clitoris is a beautiful piece of our anatomy, but I just knew that there was more. I knew that there was more depth, and I wanted to experience more. And then last year I went on this. I started coming across posts on social media that were talking about internal orgasms, G-spot and cervical orgasms. G-spot orgasms I'd heard about, but I'd kind of accepted the statistic that generally, the majority of women need clitoral stimulation in order to climax. And then I started to become aware that actually maybe that wasn't quite true. And then when I started to hear about cervical orgasms, I was pretty blown away, because I'd never thought about the cervix as a place of that could be a center for pleasure and climax. And whenever I hear stuff like that, it doesn't make me think, oh, I haven't heard it, so it's probably not true. Something happens when I hear these things that really resonate with me, and something happens in my body, and it's like I need to explore this more. And I just love things that are going against what we've been told, especially in relation to this topic. So then I started to research about cervical orgasms, and I was like, oh my God. I was like, Tom, you can't even find anything on the internet that tells you anything about this. Of course, even searching DuckDuckGo, which is apparently now owned by Google anyway. It's like, wow, this stuff is not even widely available to research. I'm not going to go into a rant about censorship, but I could, but I won't, because I don't think it's a helpful use of my time. But yeah, I was like, wow, okay, so I need to do my own experiential research here, like with pretty much everything that I've experienced on my journey so far. And I think that's what so many of us are being called to do. We sometimes get distracted by trying to implement other people's strategies and other people's ways of doing things, when we're really just being called to create our own, and not even create our own, experience what has already been created for us, that's meant for us, that's ours to experience, and we get to find that out through just diving in and having our own experience of it all. So basically I could just feel it in my bones that this was something that was for me. And so I found a ritual that was called sexual disarmoring, and I adapted it to my own needs and what felt good and resonant for me. And I started to really open up to a deeper level of penetration, a deeper level of pleasure. And what happened was just blew my mind. Like a lot of crying, a lot of grief, a lot of shame, a lot of layers of really dark and painful stuff came up to be experienced. And it took and has taken and continues to take, time and patience. Patience, you know, my own patience, and also asking Tom to be patient with me as I go through this process of opening to more, of opening and deepening my capacity for more. And what generally has happened is that when I have these like when it feels good to have sex again, so I have these periods where we have sex and then it's like really up-leveled sex, and then there's like an integration period, and it might be that there's like some other thing comes up, like I feel like I need my space again, I need more time to integrate, or I have had also where my bladder, my cystitis flares up a little bit again, and that takes me deeper into my body, into my cells, into my relationship with, you know, that whole urinary system and pelvic floor area and nervous system and sexual organs. And then something has shifted in the last couple of weeks, and on Wednesday, after our crazy karaoke, we had really amazing sex, which is probably at least 2 months since we last had sex, and it was like, oh yes, opening to this cervical pleasure and experiencing this. I mean, someone has commented on my post and used the word Godgasm. Like, that's what it feels like. The cervical orgasm is like nothing else I have ever experienced. It's like a deeper, longer lasting version of the massively expanded orgasms, if you've ever experienced those. And it feels like coming home. It feels like connecting with something and like allowing the experience of something in my body that feels so new and exciting and so old. And of course it's yeah, like I think I said in my post, like, there aren't really words to articulate this. It's something that I really wish for everybody, every woman, to experience. And then and then Tom's like, oh, you know, let's go again the next night. I'm like, no, because I've learned that when I do that, I blow. Like, in the past, I've just gone too fast, too quickly, and not allowed my nervous system the time and space to integrate the up level in the frequency, the change in the frequency. And so I said, no, you know, let's wait a few days and see how my body responds to this. And today, is it the third day? Yeah, it's the third day. And I'm like, so ready for more. And yeah, it probably has got something to do with the fact that I've been watching sex education all day. But I just sent him a message earlier saying, like, and the other thing about this Godgasm, like cervical orgasm thing, is it lends itself to really slowing down, to, in my case anyway, at this point in my journey, to like, less is more. I want like slow, deep penetration where less is more, and just the contact with even without the climax, like just the contact and the penetration at that deep level is just wild, just like totally wild. So that said, it's now 20 to 11 and I have a date which I am at the moment probably late for, because I'm walking around the beach recording this. But as I'm in this state of yearning and still feeling the pleasure from the Godgasm on Wednesday, I just wanted to share. So here is to evolving orgasms, Godgasms, for every single woman on this planet. And I will leave it there, sending loads of love.